We're live. Yeah.
So here we are. Welcome back, everyone. We're in Frederiksted for a Bioblitz today for Earth Week. We're actually working here now along the waterway, the Ghuts, just near the playground. And we've just started doing our survey. We were here a little bit earlier this morning to look at birds because if you were listening earlier, you know that early morning is kind of the best time to do bird surveys. So we did find some cool things. We found a yellow-crowned night heron. So he was just finishing up for the evening, eating what he does, probably crabs. But you know, they'll eat whatever they can get. We also found a green heron, which is a small bird that loves to sit on these small branches and just sit very, very quietly and still until it sees something and then it gets them. So, you know, you see different birds in different places based on what they like to eat and how they like to hunt. We're seeing some mangroves here, mangrove trees. We found this one here a minute ago. This is cool. You can see this is called a white mangrove. We actually have a Kelcie here who's kind of an expert on mangroves.
Oh. How is the expert? What? You can identify them.
Yeah, so she's got a neat way of being able to identify them.
So one of the fellows in St. Thomas, she came up with this cool thing to identify them. So it's white bolts on tight. So you can see these tiny little bolts right here at the base of the leaf. And that's how we know it's a white mangrove.
What are those, do you know?
I think this is where they put out some salt.
Right, it's a salt plant.
And then we have some seedlings here, which I've never seen before. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So there are three types of mangrove, primarily red, white, and black. We'll see which we find, and then there's another tree that's kind of like a mangrove, but not officially, and that's a buttonwood tree, and those are definitely here today. Yeah, we're gonna just walk along here today. We did do a trash cleanup earlier, so you can see we pulled this bunch of trash out of just the shoreline. There's plenty more, so unfortunately, there's plenty more.
And for the people online, do you want to describe what these holes are?
Yeah, so you see these deep holes there. That's not actually a place to throw your beer bottle. Although apparently there were people who thought that because we found a lot of them like that this morning. Those are crab holes. So those are big land crabs that live in or dig in those holes. I don't see any out right now, but they're huge. They're really big. Some people like to eat them, and some birds like to eat them as well.
And will we normally see fiddler crabs in this area?
We might see some fiddler crabs. I haven't seen any today.
So how is the trash affecting this gut?
Oh man. Well, you know, the trash is kind of like poison. You know, you may not notice it. You may think, oh, my glass bottle, I just threw it there. It's just sitting there, but it's actually releasing, you know, there's colors, there's, oh, look, there's a bird.
Oh, yeah, he's talking about that one.
Oh,
Kingbird?
that is a gray kingbird. I'm going to add that to my list for today. But yeah, the trash is, you know, anything that's in there, any chemicals that are in there will start leaching out and becoming part of the soil. And then the trash itself, we picked up some bottles earlier and there were some crabs and snails stuck in them. And then eventually this water all ends up in the ocean. So if you like to swim in the ocean, you probably don't want to be swimming in a bunch of trash. So that's really, you know, it's disgusting, really. But also there are animals that might eat things. So you're talking about bottles, but there's also balloons and trash bags and straws and all those sorts of things. And we've probably all heard about how, you know, sea turtles and fish eat them or get caught up in them, and then they die.
So we'll move along. We can talk a little bit about some of the plants that we're seeing, some of this coastal vegetation. So we have east-side maho or a portia tree. So not to be confused with manchineel. So manchineel has so a heart-shaped leaf is a good shaped leaf.
Right.
Whereas manchineel has more of like
it's more like a traditional leaf, you know, just kind of an oval leaf. So heart is good. We love heart.
Yeah, and then next to it we have a neem tree, which has lots of like antibiotic properties and such. So that's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, this is a neat one here. So I was talking earlier about mangroves. This is kind of a mangrove, kind of not. But they live with mangroves, and it's called a buttonwood tree. The reason it's called a buttonwood tree is it's got these little buttons, as you would call them. This is kind of where their seeds are. So I'm going to pull one off and show you all these itty bitty little seeds on here. So it's the buttonwood. You'll find them along the shorelines, but they also are pretty hardy, so when it dries up they can survive really well. If we look, you can actually see along here, those silver gray looking trees are also buttonwoods. That's a different variety of buttonwood that people really like to use for landscaping, but this is kind of the natural one that you'll find here. Do you see something, Kelsey? Did you see something?
No, I'm just taking a picture of the way.
Okay. Birds and I know some of my plants, but I don't know my insects very well, so I'm gonna try and use iNaturalist to identify that. We're gonna see if we can get a picture of it, and maybe I'll get the community to help me identify that. It's right on the branch here. See? And we just saw a dove fly up. For landscaping a lot because it is really beautiful and you know it's hardy and you don't need to do a lot of care. Is that another mangrove back there? Looks like it. Yeah. So mangroves are really important, and that's why one of the reasons why we're focusing on this area, particularly in Frederiksted, because mangroves are. It's hard to express how important they are. They're so important that they're specially protected by Virgin Islands law. So if you were to trim or pull out a mangrove, you have to get a permit just to do that. But they protect our shorelines. They protect them from storms coming in. They protect them from, you know, storm surge from the ocean coming up. But they also protect the water from all the soil and all the junk coming down. They have a way of kind of filtering it out. They're also really amazing habitat. There's lots of birds that really like living in them. There's types of mangroves that can actually live in the water, so they can have their roots in underwater. And in places where you have lots and lots of mangroves, like a pond or a lagoon, there's whole ecosystems underneath them where juvenile fish, a lot of the fish we like to eat and see on the coral reefs, they can swim around in those roots, and they're protected there from the big guys. But you can also see jellyfish and invertebrates in there that are really cool. Kelsey knows a lot more about the marine life than I do.
So Jen, is this gut man-made or is this natural?
I I am not totally sure. It's definitely been manipulated by man. You know, you can see we're right next to a parking lot on this side and the ball field on that side. I believe that this was all, I mean, you can see it's kind of flat and low, so he certainly is prone to flooding. So whether there was, I actually don't know. That would be a good question for someone like Olassie Davis to answer, because he knows a lot about the history and ecology of this area. But there might have at some point been a smaller flow like this, but the way it flows now is very much man manipulated. Scalinate, yeah.
You have a white mangrove right there.
Oh.
Right next
Did
to
you
a
see any reds earlier?
I didn't see any red mangrove. Yeah.
I didn't know that they had this color buttonwood.
silver button.
Yeah, that's really pretty.
They're
It
beautiful.
must be like contact or something varietal.
So.
Some varietal.
Maybe
What about all
we'll
the
come
snails
here
we
and show you
see?
guys a little bit more of the gut.
Okay, I won't ask that.
So Russ was just asking me about the snails, and we've seen a lot of snails today. Like, look along that shoreline there. You can see all of these. I'm going to try not to fall in, but
You
you
already
can
pulled
see,
someone
some
out
of them
today.
are buttonwood leaves, but there's also a lot of snails along here. At Buttonwood. I wish I don't know very much about snails. So we're going to put these on iNaturalist and see if somebody from the community knows what they are.
I mean, I know you need snails in an aquarium to clean it up.
Yeah. Well, these snails have their work cut out for them because this is not a very clean area. That's probably why there's so many of them.
Maybe, yeah.
So most snails are detritivores, and that means that they eat decaying or dead material, and they kind of help break down things in the environment and reprocess the nutrients and kind of help put it back. So kind of like bungalows, right?
Oh, the bungalows of Ghuts. That's
So the
cool.
gut bungalows.
Gut
bungalows.
I
Heard it here first.
That might be, you gotta trademark that.
Oh yeah, they're definitely good.
Right?
Yeah, good ones to have on our survey.
Yeah.
I'm gonna snap a photo and then.
Yeah, they're all over the place. This is what I love about being outdoors is I've been a wildlife biologist for 20 years, more than 20 years, and I still learn something nearly every time I go out.
Maybe it depends if they've been on a Heineken or Coronavirus. Affects their health.
It's beautiful. Look how beautiful they are.
There's so many.
Yeah, I was noticing that.
Oh,
Like,
fiddle crab.
Fiddler crab.
Maybe it's just they're really. There's one right there too.
Okay. There's
Oh, and there's a different species of snail right there too. Look at that cone one. There's Alfonso and Yanita.
I know. Alfonso. Call him up. Where did that fiddler crab go? Well, as we were talking about earlier, this is another reason why it's such a great place for birds, is because these are all things that birds can eat. They can come here. Obviously, we've got a lot of snails, and the crabs are a little shy right now, but they're the little fiddler crabs. Fiddler crabs are called because they have one claw that's really big, as if they have a fiddle or a violin. But those are they're fantastic snacks for those birds that just sit along here and eat. see, there's not. It's not active, but you see how that branch is hanging out like that?
Yeah.
That might be a nest. There are some birds that like to build floating nests. So when the water's a little higher, you know, we're in a drought right now, so it's low. But when it's the water's a little higher, they'll build their nest just floating on the water like that, attached to a branch as an anchor.
I'm surprised there's no reds in here.
Well, keep walking a little ways. Oh, prickly pear! Look at that. That is not a typical gut flora, but you never know what you're going to find.
Yeah, it's smaller than
Could be. I mean, you can eat them, so that's kind of a neat.
Someone's secret stash.
Yeah. More mangroves. So, if you just stop for a second and listen. You guys hear that? There it goes. Yeah, so that was a banana quit bird, also known as the yellow breast and sugar bird. And that's the official territorial bird. They're beautiful, and they like to eat nectar, kind of like hummingbirds, and so there's a good chance that they're looking for the flowers along here and finding something to eat. Man, nature.
Yeah.
Yay, Waste Management Authority coming to pick up the trash.
Do we have any viewers?
The most we have is 5. Right now it's only 1. I tried to interact with some of the comments, like them and stuff.
Okay. Well, we're gonna keep doing our survey along here. Thank you for joining us. We hope you learned a little bit today, and we'll be posting this later for you to view on our website, and it'll say on our Facebook page. So hope everyone has a great Earth Day, Earth Weekend, and we'll be back at 11:30 to talk to the Marine team.